Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. Here we are in this beautiful Memorial Day weekend. Of course, it's a weekend in which in America we are all praying and think of all those brave men and women that fought really hard for new times and security and also freedom in the very lands of the United States of America. We would like to dedicate this show to all of them, and especially to their families, because here at Kardec Radio, it's all about nourishing our souls and healing our hearts. Talking about healing, we're honored to have here with us Dr. Brian Sandroff. Brian Sandroff is here with us, and he's going to enlighten our hearts by talking about illness as a demanding teacher. Isn't that right? But how so? We'll understand more, and Spiritism with Allan Kardec explains all along that illnesses are true opportunities for learning. Actually, the Spirit Dr. André Luiz, the very one that compiled information in books such as Nosso Lar through Chico Xavier, which also came out as a movie, he says that illness is a thermometer of faith. Brian Sandroff is the director and principal owner of the Wellbeing Healing Center and Holistic Pharmacy in Hunt Valley, Maryland. He got his pharmacy degree in '84 at the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy. Since then, he has been working in a more holistic way, very deeply, and we're very blessed to be around him because he's really bringing a new concept to health by including diet, exercise, information on the importance of sleep, stress reduction, coping mechanism. There's so much to learn with Brian. He, for 17 years, was the host of Your Prescription for Health, which still is a talk radio program, and to give advice on medical news and information, and became a forum of discussion on alternative and complementary medicine. He's one of the leading forces, leading minds of alternative complementary medicine in the greater Baltimore area. And we're blessed to have him here with us at Kardec Radio. But before we bring Brian here, we'd like to share with you that you can listen to Kardec Radio also at a sister radio located in Miami, Florida, and our friends from Bezerra Online Web Radio at Spiritist.com are there full-time in actual trilingual way. They have programs in Portuguese, Spanish, and in English. And in the English format, you can also count on the rebroadcasting of Kardec Radio shows live right now at Spiritist.com and many others and much, much more, coordinated by the Spiritist Center Bezerra de Menezes in Miami, Florida, leading forces by Luis Salazar and Claudia Nunes, who, you're going to listen to Claudia Nunes speak here today. When we were at the 6th U.S. Spiritist Symposium in Atlanta, Claudia Nunes was there as a major event coordinator on the behind the scenes of event, which is a lot of work. And we finally have her interview here today, later at Kardec Radio, for you to get to know more about the ins and outs of the symposium, this National Spiritist meeting. You also hear an interview with Priscilla Pereira, who is one of the directors of the Spiritist Center Love and Light in Orlando, and she was one of the MCs of the event. You also learned the beautiful interview of Gabriel Korngold with the coordinator of the youth education at the symposium, Bernadette Liao, who is also the host of the segment, Yes, Youth Education in Spiritism. And finally, a beautiful and very inspirational interview with Abigail Francisco, who is the leading force of the artistic presentations of the classical ballet at the U.S. Spiritist Symposium that happened in Atlanta a few weeks ago. And one of her directors, Nancy, is also being interviewed, and you're going to listen to them today, what they did and why they brought this classical ballet presentation to this National Spiritist meeting. Not only them, but the 5 main ballerinas also are going to give us their view on their presentation and how they felt at their participation in the United States Spiritist Symposium. And you know what? In a week, we're going to begin a new month at Kardec Radio. And as you know, the first Saturday of every month, we dedicate to empowerment of parents. Parents who need a lot of empowerment to restructure their families. And we are going to bring you a very important interview with Dr. Vicki Penachon, who is one of the leading experts in parenting. Her website is betterparentinginstitute.com, and she's going to be here with us talking about a major topic, bullying. How can we understand bullying? How can we treat it? Is there a possibility that we can prevent it? How can we empower parents? Because it can affect families big time. And we are not even talking about extreme cases when kids go desperate and commit suicide. We're talking about the management of this social issue that we call bullying. And Dr. Penachon recently told us that this, for some reason, is escalating. So we really need to address it. Well, dear listener, today we're dedicating to greater understanding on illness. As we mentioned before, and you can also read the Spiritist take on it in the most recent issue of the Spiritist magazine at thespiritistmagazine.com. Beautiful issue dedicated to the proposal of healthy entertainment. And besides many things, we have a beautiful message of Dr. Andre Lewis. Andre Lewis comes and shares with us that illness is the thermometer of faith. And you know, sometimes we get ill because of all kinds of excesses. And this is when we bring Allan Kardec in the Spirit's book, in one of his comments to question 714, when we're talking about all kinds of excesses. And he says, those who seek to satisfy their tastes through excesses of all kinds place themselves below animals, because animals at least know how to limit themselves to satisfying their needs. Ouch. That's very strong. But you know, it's true. It's reasoned faith. Really, it is. Animals really know, and it's possible that Dr. Senderoff is going to explain us much more in that regard, how much our illnesses can really be signs that we are crossing the limits of our physical body. Dear listener, let us kickstart this beautiful program today as we prepare to bring in here Dr. Brian Senderoff to enlighten our minds and our hearts with new instructions. Check this message out from the CD and also book, Enlightening Messages, by several different spirit authors through the amazing mediumship of Chico Xavier. This cute little, very little story is entitled Vito's Farewell, and it talks about this transition from this life to the next by the spirit who was a Brazilian in his last reincarnation named Cornélio Pires. Enjoy it. We go for a first break. When we come back, Dr. Senderoff is going to tell us why illness can be a demeaning teacher.
Vito's Farewell. It is full moon at the shack where he lives. Vito dies, very old, while staring at the hills. His prayer sounds like the bark of a dog whining among the trees. Poor friend who is dying without help, he cries remembering the corn in the mill. He carries 80 years of tears in the carcass now thrown on the bare floor. Sweating, he sees a young man at the door. "I am a leper," he informs in a light voice. But the young man, surrounded in a golden light, replies, "Vito, I am Jesus. Come with me." And the old man leaves his bodily wounds to enter a chariot of bright stars.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Kardec Radio, live, every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
The International Spiritist Council is organizing and promoting the 7th World Spiritist Congress, which will be held in Havana, Cuba on March 23rd through the 25th of 2013. The Congress theme will be Charity and Spiritual Education in Building a World of Peace. 150 years of the Gospel according to Spiritism. For more information, please visit www.7cem.org.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Join us every Thursday, live, Evolution in Two Worlds, a journey of the soul through the teachings of the Spirit Doctor, Andrea Luiz. Connect at www.tvcei.com, Channel 2.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
A new great book and tool for kids and educators. The children's book, Our Father by the Spirit Mei, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is available for purchase at www.edisayofamerica.com. Buy your copy today.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, it's all about illness as a demanding teacher. Is that right? Dr. Senderoff is here with us. Thank you so much, Dr. Senderoff, for being with us at Kardec Radio today.
Hi, Vanessa. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
You know, we're talking about illness as an opportunity to strengthen our faith. But, Brian, you know, the traditional way of seeing illnesses can be so different from the one you've been proposing. What is the main difference between the traditional way of seeing illnesses and the way you understand and divulge nowadays?
Right. So, you know, with Western medicine, this is only a slightly simplified version, but with Western medicine, if there's something wrong with you, there's one of two things. Either there's some sort of invader from the outside world, and we have to kill that invader. So, you know, that would be a virus or a cold or some sort of bacterial infection or even a cancer. Or there's some sort of chemical imbalance. And all we got to do, according to medicine, is balance the chemistry and everything will be fine. So an example of that would be allergies, where you have too much histamine, and so you take an antihistamine. Or depression, you know, not enough serotonin, so you take a medicine that's going to increase your serotonin levels. But from a holistic perspective, those diseases, when we've got something wrong with us, it's really just an indication of the body not functioning the way it's designed to. And if we can understand what the underlying issue is, then we can make those diseases go away, especially for chronic, you know, diseases, those things that we all try to avoid as we get older.
So you're talking about, for example, let's say we were diagnosed with depression. So instead of treating the symptom, you're talking about verifying at deeper levels. And at what levels should we be working on? Because it seems like we would need to have a team of healthcare providers working with us. Is that right? Right.
Well, so here's the deal. We have to understand, again, from the traditional medical model, if you have something wrong with your, you know, like if you have depression, it's just a chemical imbalance. And so the medicines that we would take, Prozac or Zoloft or whatever, really doesn't fix the problem. And so the analogy I always give people to understand is that let's imagine that you're driving in your car and that little red oil light on your dashboard comes on. You have a couple choices. you can take it to the mechanic and find out what's wrong and get it fixed. Or if you want, just take a piece of black tape and put it over the light and you don't see it anymore. In medicine, that's what we do. The medicines that we would give somebody for depression, for example, are only the black tape covering up the indicator. They're not fixing the problem. And so what medicine doesn't do is ask the very important question. If there is a brain chemical imbalance, why is that brain chemical imbalance there? And there could be a lot of reasons for that, but usually it's because we're not interacting with our environment in an appropriate way. And this is our body's way of saying something is amiss.
Wow, that's so interesting. And when I see, for example, in your holistic pharmacy and the healing center, the Wellbeing Healing Center at Hunt Valley, Maryland, you work with a team of professionals that really complement each other. So we would say in that discovery to what is missing, the missing link within, you would certainly need more than just pills. And there is a lot to do also with this inner discovery through psychotherapy of some form, as you say, treating our emotions, treating our spirituality, going to the deep sense of healing, right?
Right. Yeah, no question about it. And it does take, a multifaceted approach to figure out what's going wrong and, more importantly, how to fix that. And so, I don't recommend St. John's wort for somebody that has depression either, just by itself. I mean, that may help with some of the symptoms, but that's not getting to the underlying cause either. There can be some underlying issues. There can be some nutritional deficiencies, essential fatty acid deficiencies that are, leading to, for example, depression. There could be some hidden food sensitivities that are playing a role with this, but probably more importantly, there's stress, how the body's responding to stress and how the body kicks out cortisol, and then how cortisol causes genes to express themselves in a way that ultimately shows itself as that brain chemistry imbalance. Learning to interact with our environment in a different way is really, really key here. And so that can be done so many different ways, through meditation, through meditative practices, through psychotherapy, through hypnotherapy, one way or another. In this example, one way or another, what we need to do is figure out how we're interacting with our environment in an unhealthy way. Something happens, we react in a certain way. Only 10% of that reaction comes from our conscious mind. 90% of that comes from our subconscious or unconscious. And so finding some way to thin the veil between those two worlds so that you understand why you're reacting to things the way you are is really getting to the underlying cause so that you can fix a problem.
So there is a multidimensional approach to illnesses in general.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right? So that in that regard, in this philosophy, would you say that when somebody, what would you recommend as the first step for somebody who is experiencing, an acute disease? Because as you said before, at the very beginning, you mentioned about chronic diseases, and the approaches may be different according to what you're experiencing, right?
Yeah, no question about that. And that needs to be really understood. I mean, I always tell people that I'm a product of Western medicine. I mean, not just in my training, but, in growing up. And so the truth is that if I get into a car accident, I'm not going to have them run me to the acupuncturist. I'm going to have them put me back together, take me to the emergency room and put me back together. But for chronic diseases, Western medicine, clearly misses the boat, and that's why we've got such a problem with, chronic disease here. So and if we were to take, because we've been talking about depression, if we were going to take that as an example, there could be an acute phase and there could be a chronic phase to that. And so, I'm not about having people suffer, and I don't make a value judgment about using those medicines. And so if somebody's on the edge of a cliff in a gale, taking a vitamin isn't going to fix that. And sometimes you need stronger means to help balance things. But the understanding that is a short-term stopgap measure, not that's the road for the rest of our lives. And unfortunately in medicine, if someone has depression and the doctor puts them on Prozac, oftentimes they're on Prozac for the rest of their lives or until it's not working anymore. And that's I think, a huge mistake that we make in medicine.
Especially when it's with children, right? Because they are treating children in the same line of thought, and it's a big mistake as well because there is a developing brain there, right?
What we do with children is, in medicine, oftentimes barbaric. I mean, I see these little babies that are, they've got reflux, and so the doctor puts them on a medicine for reflux that stops the acid in the stomach instead of asking the real simple question, what are they eating, or why is there an imbalance of the good bacteria in their gut? And for behavior issues, the Ritalins and the Strateras of the world are not good answers. And I think that, it's multifaceted. But one of the major messages that I think we're sending to our children when we do that is that when you have a problem, the answer comes from a bottle. And then they look for other bottles to have their answers from later on in life. And so I see a lot of teenagers and young adults in their 20s that end up looking for substances or activities to numb themselves or to, distract themselves from what's really going on inside their heart instead of asking that simple question, and that is, what's going on here with me?
Wow. Yeah, that's very profound because you also are talking about drug addictions, like predisposing them to drug addiction, right? And you're talking a lot about food. I mean, is usually we see that food is our first addiction.
We learned that message so early. I always joke about my mom being the typical Jewish mother that worries about things. And not that our parents, planted these seeds on purpose or intentionally, but you know what? When I'm a little kid and I fall down and I skin my knee and I'm crying because it hurts, and Mom says to me, hey, have a cookie, it'll make you feel better. Oh, boy, that's a lesson that we learn and hard to unlearn later on in life, right? And again, no bad intention, but as parents, I think that in this society, we're not very good at allowing our children to actually feel what they're feeling. We try to tell them it's not okay to feel that or they shouldn't feel that. And you know what? You fall down, you skin your knee, it hurts, and it should hurt, and you should be sad, and you should cry. It's okay. And you get past it. And that's a lesson that, we either learn or don't learn, and then later on in life, I deal with a lot of patients that one way or another have food addictions. They're addicted to sugar or they eat emotionally. And I don't know if it's okay to mention the website, but we have a product. One of the practitioners in our office is a clinical hypnotherapist, and she has developed a self-hypnosis CD for emotional eating that somebody could download right from the website, and it helps them understand and get away from eating for emotional reasons instead of if you're really hungry.
Wow, that's great. Is she Randy Botnick?
Yep.
All right, that's good to know. It's directly there, the website, wellbeing.gps.com. That's great. That's a great name, by the way. We need a GPS, right? Not to get lost.
That's it, exactly. Your navigation tool to being well.
Exactly, and that's what we need because most likely we're suffering from ignorance. In Spiritism, Kardec brings it very clearly. We suffer most of the time because we don't know the rules of the game of life, right? And and Brian, when you're talking about eating, last week HBO, in collaboration with the National Institute of Health, launched a major national campaign in the United States entitled The Weight of the Nation to share with the public that, obesity is now an epidemic in the United States. So it's not a joke anymore. It's not simply, okay, it's around the corner, but now I'm in my house and everybody's suffering and something really is going really wrong. And what is your take in that regard? What's happening regarding overweight and obesity?
Yeah, that's really, again, multifaceted. You can't look at one factor and say, okay, that's what the problem is, because it is a lot of different things. So number one is the food that we feed our children is backwards, and it's not. We don't feed ourselves and our children the way that we were designed to eat on this planet. We have entirely too many grains. And the food pyramid even is backwards. And I know that they've started to make some changes, but for my taste, government makes change entirely too slowly. And then look at the exercise. In school now, I've got my kids who went through high school only having to take 1 year of physical education.
Oh, wow.
And my youngest one he is what we would call high energy. And he's a child that, you know, under different circumstances and with different parents, he could end up on Ritalin or whatever because of his, you know, high energy. Mm-hmm. And so at school, he would get in trouble, you know, because his attention was somewhere else. He happens to be kind of intelligent. I think he was just really bored at school. But his attention would be somewhere else. He would get in trouble. And what would they do? They'd take away his physical activity. They'd say, all right, you're not going out for, you know, phys ed today. And when I found this out, I called the teacher up. I said, you know, you're punishing yourself, because what's really would be best is actually make him go out and run. Let him work off that energy, not stop him from doing that, because that makes it harder for him. And so we don't get our kids exercise in school the way we should. When it comes to the diets, one of the biggest culprits for the obesity is high fructose corn syrup. There's a whole big political part of this, of how and why we use corn and why there's so much corn syrup available to be used in the food industry. I wrote a nice article about this on the website, and that is also, you know, part of the problem. And there's the whole emotional eating part of it. You know, we just don't take enough time to cook properly. How many parents are, you know, at home, are two working parents, and the typical day is kids come home from school, then they have an activity after school, and then it's either pizza or McDonald's or some sort of fast food, instead of actually taking the time to make the food ourselves.
So we really need to revisit the whole concept. It reminds me, Brian, of Divaldo Franco. Once I was asking him, Divaldo, why so many kids nowadays are having allergies? And of course, this is more from an immortal perspective. And he says, you know, there is a learning on need of greater discipline. When you're not allowed to eat certain foods, you have to learn to discipline yourself not to eat those foods. So there is a learning experience there. But why are we also seeing increasing levels, Brian, of allergies nowadays? Is it because we're really going, you know, off track regarding what we need? We're indulging too much?
Yeah, it's there's a couple issues. One is that we're indulging in things. You know, some of the food allergies that develop because of overexposure to those foods. So grains and a specific protein called gluten that's in wheat and oat and rye and barley. You know, we have it too much in our diet, but it's more insidious than that. The reason that we have allergies are nothing more than an overzealous inflammatory response. So the body gets exposure to some sort of trigger, say pollen or say peanut, whatever, and the body looks at it as a life-threatening, happening, and produces inflammation in a way that is inappropriate for what that trigger is. And the reason that we have that overzealous inflammatory response is because of an imbalance of fats in our diet. You know, 150 years ago in our diet, we got pro and anti-inflammatory fats in a certain ratio. And today that ratio is so out of whack, and that happens because of all the vegetable oils in our diet, and it happens because of what we feed our animals that we end up eating. You know, cows are supposed to eat grass. When we feed it corn, of course, it brings it to market weight much quicker, so that's good economically, right? You know, but it changes its fats, and then we eat those animals, and that changes our fats, and then we're too geared towards inflammation. This is part of the reason why we have allergies, part of the reason why we have, all of these itises, part of the reason why we have so much autoimmune disease today, all because of an imbalance of fats. And that's why, you know, I'm such a big proponent of taking fish oil as a supplement, because it helps balance those fats.
Makes so much sense. Wow, there's so much really to re-educate ourselves. Brian, we're going to give a short break. When we come back, we want to know more about what to do when first diagnosed with a very severe chronic illness.
Cool.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
A new great book and tool for kids and educators. The children's book, Our Father by the Spirit Mei, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is available for purchase at www.editayofamerica.com. Buy your copy today.
Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
The newest edition of the Medium's book by Allan Kardec is now available. Purchase your copy online or via your ebook reader. Simply go to www.ediciofamerica.com today.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Join us every Thursday live. Evolution in Two Worlds. A journey of the soul through the teachings of the Spirit Doctor, Andrea Luiz. Connect at www.tvcei.com, Channel 2.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone, the online study of the Spirit's Book and the Gospel according to Spiritism. Spiritism for Everyone meets every Wednesday evening and Saturday morning using the latest technology in web conferencing. You can join in from any computer in the comfort of your home or office, no matter where you are in the U.S. or the world. Spiritism for Everyone is open, free, and requires no registration. To access the web live meetings, go to www.spiritus.us. Spiritism for Everyone is a program of the United States Spiritist Council.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here to understand more about who we are. We all know that we are more than the physical body. The physical body is this precious instrument of our reincarnation, and we need to adjust ourselves into how to use but not abuse the physical body. So we have here with us Dr. Brian Sandroff, who is the director and principal owner of the Wellbeing Healing Center and Holistic Pharmacy in Hunt Valley, Maryland. He has a degree in pharmacy by the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy, and he has been a major leading force in holistic medicine in the greater metropolitan Baltimore area. Brian, you were telling us about the need to really revisit our food habits and also to get into greater activity. But what about people who are experiencing chronic illness? Let's talk about first diabetes. What should they do and how should they see illness from this holistic perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the answer is that any sort of chronic disease that we have, two things. Number one, it's actually the body doing exactly what it's supposed to do based on the influences that we're giving it from the outside world. There's this concept, I remember the very first day of pharmacy school, we got a whole lecture about this concept, which is called homeostasis. And basically what it means is the body will do whatever it has to do to maintain life. And chronic disease happening, the development of that, is nothing more than homeostasis in action. It's actually the body doing exactly what it's designed to do to maintain life. And if we want those diseases to go away, we have to look at the influences that we're giving it from the outside world. So diabetes, for example, first of all, understand anybody that goes to the doctor and they're told that they have diabetes, that process has been in effect, or that has been in the works for 10, 15, 20 years. You don't wake up one morning and have diabetes. And that process happens because you have too many processed and refined carbohydrates in your diet. It's that simple. There was a study that came out in the Journal of American Medical Association probably 7 or 8 years ago now that showed that 92% of adult-onset diabetics could control their diabetes with diet and exercise alone.
Wow.
And giving the medicines that we do to either make the cells more sensitive to insulin or to lower the blood sugar one way or another, every one of those oral medicines actually carries a warning with it and makes people more susceptible to heart disease. It's not really fixing a problem. Again, it's just turning down the volume so that you don't see the problem, in this case, your blood sugar, and the process is still going on, and all of the underlying issues are there that lead to the disease that supposedly we're trying to avoid. This is classic medicine where what we look at is an indicator, and then all of our treatments are designed to make that indicator look different almost regardless of what happens with the patient. And so just lowering blood sugar is not the issue. It's getting those processed and refined carbs. And we usually recommend in our practice that if you're eating something that says recommended by the American Diabetic Association or recommended by the American Heart Association, don't eat it because it's not good for you and it's not going to help you. All of those processed and refined carbs, those that they say are good, supposedly complex carbs that they want to have diabetics eat, are not good for you. And if someone listening here has a sugar challenge and or a family history of a sugar issue, get those processed and refined carbs out of your diet. I'm not talking about just cakes and candies and donuts. I'm talking about breads and pastas and cereals. If you have a diabetic that has a piece of 12-grain whole wheat bread for breakfast, for them and the way their body works, just like a Snickers bar. And if that's the case, I always say have the Snickers bar because it's a lot more fun.
and you're so right. It reminds me of this passage at one of Kardec's books, The Gospel According to Spiritism, in which one of the spirit doctors came, his name is Georges, and he says we need to take care of body and spirit. And even us as spiritists, sometimes we think too much of the spiritual part. We forget that to be incarnated, we need to take care of the body. No wonder he said take care of body and spirit. So you're talking about understanding more. What is this body all about? But what about these spread of cancer? I remember in your talk at the Spirit Side of Baltimore's event, you mentioned that cancer nowadays is considered more of a chronic disease than the last call to the ticket to the afterlife. How so?
And again, this we have to understand that when you show up with most cancers, they've been in the process for a long time. It's not like you wake up in the morning and that happened. The truth is that there's not one person listening to this show right now that doesn't have cancer. Every one of us does. We have somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 cells that are growing out of whack. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, for the vast majority of us, our immune systems recognize this and they stop that growth right then and there. And then for some reason, for some people, they don't. And then those cells continue to reproduce, and then they turn into a tumor. All of the measures that we take in medicine, whether that's mammogram, whether it's colonoscopy, that's not prevention. All that is potentially earlier detection, but that's not prevention at all. And if you want to prevent cancer, you have to get your inflammatory balance working properly. And you have to look at how you're interacting with your environment. The truth is, and sometimes in my practice I found that sometimes it's very hard for me to look a patient in the eye that has cancer and give them this message, but I do because it's important to understand. Cancer does not happen to us. It happens because of us. And if you, as a soul, as a human, have developed a cancer, there's a reason for it. And if you are willing to ask yourself what that's about, as opposed to just burning or cutting that cancer out, then you may learn that lesson, and a healing could happen, as opposed to a curing, which, rarely happens really. But the healing can happen when you understand why it is that your body develops that cancer in the first place. Here's an example of that. Breast cancer and the development of breast cancer. I have found with many of my breast cancer patients that they come from families where issues about nourishing or issues about women are a problem. And so a woman may come from a family where women are downgraded, where they're thought of as, they're supposed to be in the kitchen and all of that sort of stuff. And them taking that in energetically has led to, what ultimately became a breast cancer. Or lack of nourishment. A lot of people from my generation, I'm 51, a lot of people from my generation here in this country were not nursed because our parents were told by doctors that only poor people would nurse their babies. And you can treat your baby better, better living through modern chemistry by using this formula. And so for many of us, we did not get the nurturing that nature intended for us. We literally didn't get to touch mom, in that same intimate way. And for some women, that turns into this desire for nurturing. That can show up as a dairy craving. There are some people who, crave milk and dairy, and really that's the energy that's behind it. And taken to its extreme, I've seen that show up with, something like breast cancer or uterine cancer.
Wow. And from, the Spirit Andrea Lewis, in the book Evolution into Worlds, which we are about to end this coming Thursday, chapter 20 of second part, it's all about microbial invasion. Daniel Santos is going to lead that discussion. There he talks about that perspective, the emotional part of it, leading us into transferring those elements into the physical body, and also has another link that I know you also promote that understanding and the therapy in your center through Randy Botnick and others. There's the karmic issues as well. So you're talking about illness, Brian, as a teacher. So what about that teacher that also is asking us to revisit these messages that we have been carrying throughout not only this life but previous lives? Yeah,
no question about it. And that's a huge issue that, again, we miss in our Western society. Someone gets sick and no one routinely would sit down and say, all right, what is the lesson I'm supposed to learn from this? All we concentrate on is making that disease go away, turning down the volume again, instead of really asking that simple question. And again, the understanding that when we develop a chronic disease, it's actually the body doing exactly what it's supposed to do based on what we're teaching it or what we're exposing it to from the outside world. If we would just ask that simple question of, okay, what's going on here, instead of what do I do to make this go away, then we could get to the root of something and have that problem, literally go away. And so, again, I've had some people who have heard this message and say, well, wait, you're blaming me for being sick. And I guess you could look at it that way if you choose to look at the world as being a victim. But to me, it's an empowering understanding where you get to say, wait a second, I actually can control this disease and I can make it go away just by understanding what's going on in my body. And so, yeah, illness is a teacher. It's not something to just make go away. It's something to sit with and say, wow, what's going on here? What can I adjust? How can I understand my body better? And, and as you said, there's all sorts of levels of this. And, this could come from other lifetimes as well. And, on a soul level, we come here to have experiences. Here, to me, this is an interesting, topic, because to me, we have a tendency to look at our experiences while we're in body, and we say that was a good one, or that was a pleasurable one, versus that was a bad one, or that was a painful one. That's something that we determine in between our ears. Our soul does not make that distinction. Our soul says that was an experience. I mean, that's why we're here, to have those experiences, right?
Exactly. There is a previous issue of the Spiritist magazine a few years ago in which one of the authors, Sueli Schubert, she talks about the Spiritist view on it by saying that illnesses can be a good way to drain previous lives disturbances. And Spirit Dr. Andrea Lewis, through the book Evolution into Worlds, he talks about it. It was this past Thursday when we were discussing at the Spirit Side of Baltimore, chapter 19, when he says, when we cannot, with the spirit doctors, before we reincarnate, they prepare ourselves. And they can do a checkup, and they can evaluate whether or not it's possible to reverse those lesions in the spiritual body before reincarnation. If not, they say, reincarnation is going to be a good way to rebalance that mind, that soul, for when it comes back to the spiritual realm. So as you're saying, these experiences can be truly healing if we're willing, right, Brian, to ask this very question. What is Teacher Cancer here for? And
right,
it's not harsh. It's on the contrary, as you say, it's empowerment of ourselves.
And when we remove body parts, or when we cut out a cancer, we actually may be very well interfering with that soul's experience, and just get to come back and do it again.
Exactly. You're so right. And there we can go. It's not illness, but even plastic surgery can be affecting to that level that you're mentioning as well. Brian, we need to go one more break, but when we come back, we want more. Much more from you. All right?
Great. Yeah.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Hi, this is Nara Vendidi with Succeed in America by Packaging Your Brilliance, and thank you for listening. We will talk about social media and employment. Some career experts think that the resume is dead. In my opinion, these rumors are highly exaggerated, and you should maintain your resume regardless. The resume is still the best way to convey your history, and most companies still require an application and a resume. Even if you are now employed happily, you never know. However, recruiters say that they are more likely to notice a candidate's social media presence than to spot his or her resume through the company applicant tracking system. So, it would be wise to include your professional profiles on these sites. Consider these numbers. Just about 90% of American companies are using social media to make recruiting decisions. LinkedIn accounts for 73% of hires through social media. But merely maintaining memberships on social medias like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter is not enough to score a job. It is important to show interactions with people and include your interests, opinions, and activities to make the best impression. Here is just a couple of tips for you that I usually suggest to job seekers. Pick 7 target companies you're interested in, follow them, and retweet their content. Read and respond to blogs of companies you would like to work for. So use social media to leverage your professional image, and you will stand out in the crowd. This is Nara Vendidi with Succeed in America, and thank you for being with us today. If you have any questions, please email me at nara@succeedinamerica.com. Thank you.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
For the first time ever, the book Between Heaven and Earth by the spirit André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is now in English. This is a novel that offers information about the relationship that exists in the activities of the spirit on the 2 planes of life. Purchase your copy today at www.edysayofamerica.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the spirit André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.edysayofamerica.com today. The International Spiritist Council is organizing and promoting the 7th World Spiritist Congress, which will be held in Havana, Cuba on March 23rd through the 25th of 2013. The Congress theme will be Charity and Spiritual Education in Building a World of Peace. 150 years of the Gospel according to Spiritism. For more information, please visit www.7cem.org.
And now we return to our program.
We are here, dear listener, talking about illness as a teacher. It's not easy. Of course it's not easy. But you know, as we published 3 issues ago of the Spiritist magazine, and you can check it out at thespiritistmagazine.com. We have the digital form available to everyone. There we disclose Chico Xavier's own approach, learned by the Spirit Mentor Emmanuel. He used to talk to his cells. It's a very different approach. Dr. Senderoff is here with us to teach somewhat these new ways into caring for the body, because the body is the instrument of this life. So, Brian, you were talking before about different chronic illnesses that are spreading out nowadays. At the beginning of the program, you mentioned about depression. Do you think depression, of course, we don't want to be simplistic, but what is the underlying message that depression is teaching us?
Yeah, that's it's hard to, because we don't want to be too simplistic, but I would say that for the vast majority of us, depression is nothing more than anger turned inward. We're angry about something. We're not in a place where we are expressing our feelings in a healthy way. And for some of us, we turn that anger inward, and it ends up as depression. From a biochemical perspective, it causes brain chemistry imbalance. Serotonin levels go low. And it's because of how we're interacting with our environment. I do some work with the men's group, and we really work on learning to express our feelings, how we feel in the moment. And so something happens, someone says something, and in that instant, understanding how we feel about that is key, and owning that and putting it out there into the world instead of keeping it inside. And so someone says something to me and I have a feeling about it, I'm very open about saying, when I heard you say that, I felt this. And I don't say that for them to fix my feelings. It has nothing to do with them. It's about me, and that expression keeps that from making changes inside of me. And the other understanding is that feelings are just feelings, and they come and go. It's like the weather. And we, again, in our society here are not very good at understanding that we can have a feeling, and it can feel like a negative or a dark or a heavy feeling, and that just as quickly that feeling can go away. And it's through the expression of that feeling in a way that's acceptable that allows us to dissipate that as opposed to hold on to it.
It's so amazing what you're saying, because nowadays physicians in general and most part of healthcare providers, if they are not related to psychotherapy, they barely ask patients what they're feeling, and the possibility that there is a huge emotional content related to that illness, right? So the first step, right?
Oh, yeah, no question about it. And in fact, just the opposite. I mean, the vast majority of medical training trains physicians to not ask those questions. They did a very interesting study, and this was in students that were in their residency, physicians that were in their residency. And what they did is they videotaped interviews that the physicians were doing with patients, and they were instructed at the end of their intake to ask one very simple question of the patient: is there anything else that you need to tell me? And almost to a one, the body language of the physician when they're asking that question was, don't tell me anything. Some of them literally are shaking their head sideways as they're saying the question, is there anything else you need to tell me? They're shaking their head saying, don't tell me anything else. And so we're not very good at in medicine at asking those questions. We just want, we get uncomfortable with things that we can't measure on a machine, basically. And so we don't want any of that information. And, I've seen accounts of people who have high blood pressure issues, and they go into the doctor, and the doctor never says to them, what's going on at home? Are you happy? Are you having issues with your relationship? Where are you spiritually? I mean, I think all those questions are tremendously important to ask and useful from a clinical perspective.
Wow. That's really revolutionary, because, when I teach at the University of Maryland, you've been there, it's a great university, but we're talking about, mainstream education in health for medical doctors and dental students, etc. We're just implementing those issues. I've just created a course exactly on that level about teaching emotional body language and how the brain really reads more of your body language than even your words.
Right.
So what do you count when you're in that interaction? There are nonverbal messages being sent, and as you said, in our families, and oftentimes we may be suffering from those nonverbal communication features that are not being healed. I remember Brian, I want to ask you this question. I remember a case of a patient who came to us one day and said she had MS, and she said, it's funny. Whenever I feel I'm getting better, and I disclose that to my husband, saying, I'm better, I feel I can start walking again, boom, it goes backwards. So I'm not going to tell him anything again. And what is probably happening there?
I've gotten accused of giving patients false hope. And I find that really interesting because I don't think there's such a thing as false hope. There's hope, but there's not hope. There's no such thing as false hope. And my belief, and this isn't just a belief that's out there, my belief is based on the fact that I've got 2 MS patients that do not have MS anymore.
Wow.
MS can go away. And I'm not talking about, symptoms have gone away. I'm talking about brain scans no longer show the plaques that you would see, that you did see on these 2 particular patients. And so they went through their different treatments, they had their experiences, and the MS is gone in both of these people. You talk to the MS Society, they say that's impossible. So the first thing that someone does when they have MS, for example, is they start to educate themselves about their disease. And the first thing they learn about it is this disease does not go away. If you believe that, you know what? That disease is not going to go away for you. There's no miracle for you. And the fact is that all sorts of things can happen and everything can change. And so our belief about what is possible affects what is possible. And I've had arguments with people that have said, no, I have MS and that can't go away. And I said, I'm sad about this, but you're right. For you, that cannot go away. Let me ask you a question about the MS Society. If MS went away, what would they be there for? And so I've had, it's an organization, this is the case for many organizations, that they actually thrive on the fact that there is this disease. And if the disease were to go away, they wouldn't have a reason for existence anymore. And so I think that there's an energy, if not an intention, certainly an energy that lays into the proliferation of, this can't go away.
So we have here a listener who sent us an email prior to the show knowing that you would be on the show, and it coincides with one of the questions we prepared also, which was about knowing that illness logically is a mechanism to teach us something. How can we better prepare then healthcare providers to treat the disease in itself, not the symptoms of the disease, but the whole person?
Yeah, that's a difficulty. There's a lot that has to go into that. And in my own personal Western medical training as a pharmacist, I had to have a lot of untraining from that teaching to be able to see health in the way that I see it now. And so number one is we have to recognize that we don't know everything. And that's it seems like a simple statement, but it's really very important because I think in medicine we're taught everything that there is to know about a topic. And we would never admit that we don't know everything about it because if we did, when something went wrong or if we had a patient that didn't do well, we might think, oh, wow, we didn't do everything we could do. And so there's an ego part of that I think is part of that. We have to be willing to ask questions. I don't consider myself a healer. I consider myself an information midwife. When I sit down with a patient and we have a conversation, all I'm doing is helping to bring to the surface what that person's inner healer already knows. And so if we're willing to ask questions, open-ended, questions, and then follow where that goes, then I think that, that's when we can start to change. And so as practitioners, as health practitioners, we have to be willing to ask those questions and to understand the answers and maybe even, be compassionate for that person. When I sit down with somebody, I could sit down with 10 patients in a day, and all 10 of them could have diabetes, say, and all 10 of them would have diabetes for completely different reasons. There's no one-size-fits-all. In fact, each one of us are unique individual souls that are here to have an experience, and we have those experiences in different ways. And so being here to support those experiences as opposed to make those diseases go away or fix something is probably a good place to start.
Wow. It's really, really different. As you said, these humbling experience also for the healthcare provider facing, being a bridge to healing to the patients. It takes a lot of compassion and courage, and as our students have said, where do I train myself to learn that? Because it's not around the corner. You cannot buy it, and textbooks, unfortunately, cannot teach you. Right?
Yeah, no question. I mean, we have to be willing to be human first.
All right. So talking about being human, you remind me of this beautiful book in Spiritism. Unfortunately, it's not in English yet, but it's soon coming about. It's named Hail Christ, and it's a Spiritist novel in which one of the spirit guides in the book talks exactly what you're saying in regard to we need more humanity to become real humans, and it's all about becoming a real human, leaving the realm of our most instinctive nature. So as we wrap up this delightful interview with you, Brian, what would you like to share with our listener right now who is learning to revisit this concept of illness as a teacher and not an enemy in our lives?
I guess the two big messages. Number one is that when we do have some sort of chronic disease, if we develop something that in medicine we call a disease, it's really the body doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And if we want that to change, we have to be willing to change how we're influencing the body, what we're showing or giving the body from the outside world. And number two, be willing to see a disease as an opportunity to learn something, not as a punishment, not because you did something wrong or did something bad or because something happened to you, but be willing to see it as an opportunity to learn something about yourself.
So quickly here, we just received this question from a cancer patient that is anonymous, and she asks, so in that point of view, many people say, visualize yourself fighting against cancer cells. So that's not a good perspective, right?
Well, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with trying to engage your immune system to take care of something that it hasn't been able to do before. So those visualizations where you see your white blood cells as rabbits and you see the cancer cells as carrots and you imagine the rabbits eating the carrots, miracles have happened from that, tumors have gone away from that. But the deeper understanding is to also ask yourself, why is it that I created this for myself? Mm-hmm. That understanding, almost irregardless of what happens with the cancer, may be the true nugget in that experience.
Wow. It's such a cute picture, the rabbits and the carrots. It really brings much more ease to the patient. So, Brian, we cannot thank you enough for your time in this Memorial Day weekend and for this beautiful message that you're sending to us. And thank you so much. We hope to have you here with us more often. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I would come back anytime.
Thank you so much. So, dear listener, it was a learning opportunity for us, and there is much to learn. Illness as an opportunity. Dr. Senderoff was here with us just now, sharing, and you can listen to the whole program again. Just go soon after the program ends, in an hour from now, because now we have the second part. You can access the whole file of the program at cardiacradio.com or blogtalkradio.com/cardiacradio, and you can also download for free at iTunes /Cardiac Radio. Dr. Senderoff is the director and principal owner of Wellbeing Healing Center, Holistic Pharmacy in Hunt Valley, Maryland. He is one of the leading forces of a new perspective, very holistic perspective, including spiritual healing in his wellbeinggps.com center. Go visit him, share with others. You can contact him by also calling their number 443-677-8310. Amazing institute, a whole group of healthcare providers there joining forces, and he's a great collaborator of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, now Kardec Radio, and hopefully in the future, much more that is lying ahead of us. If you have any questions to him, at the end of the show, you can still send us an email at kardecradio@gmail.com, and, we'll forward it to him. Right now, we're going to give a short break, and you know what? You're going to listen right now to extra interviews that we were not able to broadcast last show, all about the Spiritist Symposium in Atlanta. We're going to listen to an interview with the behind-the-scenes coordinator, the event coordinator, Claudia Nunes. Also, one of the MCs, Priscilla Pereira. Gabriel Korngold, we're so proud. Gabriel Korngold is the son of Jussara and Juan Korngold, leading forces of Spiritism in New York and also in the United States of America. And at 16 years of age, he became one more force of Kardec Radio in our area. He's interviewing Bernadette Liao, who is the coordinator of the Spiritist education of each and every symposium. And finally, you're going to listen to the beautiful interview with the ballet group that presented beautiful messages in the form of classical ballet at the 6th U.S. Spiritist Symposium. Enjoy this break. When we come back, these beautiful interviews, beautiful segments. Kirsten DeMello is going to talk about the moral laws in the Spiritist movement segment. Bernadette Liao is going to talk about how you can teach children about meditation. Dr. Magalhães is going to talk about altruism and its impact in health. And then, finally, we're going to wrap up the show before our final prayer with Dr. Fonseca and Gabi Ferreira talking about God at home. Enjoy this, and when we come back, there's much more.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Enjoy this new release. Reborn for Love, by the renowned Brazilian scientist and researcher on reincarnation, Dr. Hernani Andrade. This novel describes one of the most extraordinary and genuine cases of reincarnation ever studied by Dr. Andrade's Brazilian Institute of Psychobiophysics Research in Sao Paulo State. Order your copy now at roundtable.uk@gmail.com or at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want to find a good way to explain life after physical death to kids or teenagers? Check out the book Message from a Teen in the Spirit World by the Spirit Neo Lucio and psychographed by Chico Xavier. In this book, a teenager named Carlos explains his impressions on the new life in the spirit realm with his discarnate relatives and new friends. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
In the book, A Primer on Being Good by the Spirit May May, psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier, explains in simple language appropriate for children two paths in life, the path of good or the path of evil. God has granted us the freedom to choose either one. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Now we return to our program.
So we are
here with Claudia Nunes, who is mostly related to the Bezerra de Menezes Spiritist Center in Miami, Florida, and she is in charge of the whole coordination of the symposium, the 6th symposium, which is happening right now in Atlanta, Georgia. And she is mostly in charge of the behind the scenes. So, Claudia, thank you so much for being with us here at Kardec Radio. What is this experience about coordinating such a big event, a national event, and what are the main highlights you can share with us?
You know, backstage management is generally a stressful environment to be in. There's lots of things you have to run prior to them happening. The good thing about doing a Spiritist symposium is that the vibe and people's moods are totally different than a regular concert or a regular show that I do. Just last week I was unfortunately working on a production where the main director spent the whole time screaming. And today I have a director that I barely see until break time comes around and we just talk about A or B things that need to be fixed. Many things happen backstage, more things than you ever know, and if you ever have the opportunity to see the flying papers on the DVD, you have fun with me trying to catch a piece of paper. But it's normally a very good environment. People are, not saying relaxed, speaking in public is still very troublesome to most, but people are happy to be here. They do it because they love it. Nobody's obligated to be here. So I have dancers flying in from one part of the country, speakers flying in from all over the country, and we only have barely an hour meeting to put this whole thing of 7-hour show together. So when it comes out that lunch time is up and we are actually going on break, that is a wonderful feeling.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you've done.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
We're here with Priscilla Pereira at the 6th U.S. Spiritist Symposium in Atlanta, Georgia. And thank you so much for being with us at Kardec Radio now, Priscilla. Priscilla, you are one of the MCs of the event, and it's such an important role. We know it's mostly to set the tone of the event and many other things. What do you feel about not only the role of the MC in a Spiritist event such as this, a national event, but also about the event itself?
Well, every Spiritist event is an opportunity for me to see family, because all the workers, the Spiritist workers all over the United States, they have become my family. So first of all, I get excited every time there is an event because I get to see the people I love. And they know what we go through working at our centers, working for the whole movement. So it's sharing with people that care about the same things we care. So it's a beautiful learning experience, and we get so excited when we see new people coming and they feel they're also part of the movement and they get excited to work and to come over again.
All right. Thank you so much for everything.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Thank you,
Vanessa.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
We're here at the final moments of the 6th U.S. Spiritist Symposium in Atlanta, Georgia. We were truly moved by a beautiful presentation of classical ballet by the ballerinas of Abigail Francisco Classical Ballet School. And we have here both Abigail Francisco and Nancy and the ballerinas. And we want to ask you, Nancy, how can we bridge Spiritism with the art of classical ballet?
In each classical ballet production, there's a story to be told, and most go to the ballet for the costumes and to watch the dancers without understanding the story behind the dance. So if you take a little time to investigate and to learn about the story, you can learn many life lessons as a spiritist. And as I was talking today, in the story of Giselle, you saw all of them: revenge, betrayal, deceit, and most of all, forgiveness. And how a woman who was formed by someone who was deceitful and betrayed her can still be able to forgive from the love and charity that she has within herself. And with doing that, she freed herself as a spirit to move on from the material plane into the afterlife.
Wow. So Abigail, what do you think about this interaction of the public with the ballerinas when they were there? What do you feel spiritually was that also going on, or the feelings?
Well, I was very emotional. I'm very emotional right now. First, I want to thank you, the symposium, the opportunity for us to be here. Especially, I want to thank you, God, because it was not for God and Jesus, we're not going to be here today. And I want to thank my students that worked so hard to be here with me for us to be able to bring the message of the dance. And I always say, Vanessa, why I teach? I teach because I love. And I want to show through love, through dance, I want to show through dance, love to everyone. And what is spiritism? What Jesus teaches us? Love one another, be charitable. That's what I try to teach my students every day. And I think that it is the bridge for the spiritism and classical ballet, not just classical ballet, but other type of dance. It is the love, the message of love. And maybe perhaps some of my students that is here with us
Can I get
like
just
to
your
express.
first name, just so they know you're for real?
Katie, Alexandra, Cecile, Samantha, Maggie.
So would you share quickly like a main highlight for you from the whole day you've been here, charitably giving us your time?
Just the opportunity to dance for these people and to show what we're all about, and especially to show like the love and the liveliness of how we dance.
She's a student of yours, as you said.
It was great to feel how peaceful everyone was after we performed and feel how much we can impact an audience, especially just with peacefulness. Yeah, I just really liked how happy we made everyone, because it feels nice knowing that you can make a difference. You can make people really, really happy. So, yeah.
That's true.
I think my favorite part of the day was being able to learn about love and charity from all of the other speakers at the symposium. Really nice.
I guess my favorite part of the day was just like affecting other people and seeing how we like made them feel like happy and peaceful.
So thank you so much, guys. Great job, and we thank you for the great feelings you brought. Thank you, Abigail. Good job. Thank you, Nancy.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Hi, I'm Gabriel Korngold, representing Kardec Radio. I'm here with Bernadette Leao to talk a little bit about the youth program here at Spirit Symposium 2012. Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, Gay.
We have a couple of questions for you today. The first one is, what is the goal for the children's activities here at the symposium?
Well, as the parents are here enlightening themselves and learning, we try to do something in the same way, but at their level. Since the topic is about enlightenment, and we've been talking to the kids, they're learning a lot about bullying, and we thought that this is a good thing to talk about. Based on that, the topic that we chose was choices and consequences, and how we can use it in our lives, at school, and this is a way of bringing enlightenment because they are learning about it. We also bring a lot of spirituality that at the time that we don't know what to do, that we feel that, pressured or angry, then one of the things that we can do is we have to stop the situation. We breathe, we calm ourselves down, and one of the ways of doing it also is through prayer and meditation. So we are teaching the kids how to pray and meditate in the moment of stress, in the moment that they feel angry or about anything, and reflect, and then think about it and take action. And we discuss about what kind of action, what is a better way of solving any problems peacefully. And it was really fun. We did a lot.
That sounds very interesting. Do you think that in the future, these kids that you're teaching today and whenever else are going to be responsible for the symposiums and...
Well, you can speak for yourself. And the reason is because you know, a teenager, you were 16, and today you were a good helper. You were helping the little ones you were leading there. So I have no doubt about it. Okay. You are the future, all you youth and children and teenagers. That's what we are doing, nurturing, planting the seed.
I think, and most of all, it was really fun for us, and I'm glad we got to have this opportunity to talk.
Good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope to see you again next year.
Me too.
Welcome to our Yes, Youth Education in Spiritism with Kardec Radio. I am Bernadette Leal, and I'll be spending a few minutes with you, inspiring to bring spiritual awareness and spiritist teachings to our youth, parents, and educators. Today, we will answer 3 questions about the practice of meditation in children's lives. First question: is meditation a good practice to teach children and teenagers? Absolutely. Nowadays, many children and teenagers have an active life and show at an early age some signs of stress or anxiety related to school, family, relationships, and sports. Some of them may also struggle with self-esteem issues, anger, self-control, and may suffer from depression. So when children and teenagers practice meditation, they will learn how to bring peace to their minds and emotions, allowing their bodies to relax by getting a feeling of peace and calmness. A peaceful state of mind leads to happiness. Consequently, they will develop a more positive way of handling everyday situations as they become more creative, not only seeing challenges with more clarity, but increasing their concentration as well. David Lynch, a famous American filmmaker, has practiced meditation for many years, and after learning and seeing the benefits of it, he started the David Lynch Foundation. He partnered with some school districts introducing meditation to students with in-school and after-school programs in public, charter, and private middle and high schools in New York City, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago, Tucson, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. It is called the Quiet Time Program, in which students learn the TM, Transcendental Meditation. Many students in those schools showed aggressive behavior. They were hyperactive, struggled with attention, suffered from depression, stress, and were failing academically. After the students started to practice meditation during the day, their behavior and academic performance improved. It decreased absenteeism, suspensions, and rule infractions. It improved academic achievement, reduced psychological distress, stress, and anxiety. Teachers and parents were amazed with the students' change. This is a great example of how beneficial meditation is to our youth. Wouldn't it be wonderful if meditation would be part of the school program in all schools? Second question: how can I start practicing meditation with my child? The sooner your child starts practicing meditation, the better. But again, children learn by observation and example. So if you would like your child to meditate, then you should do it first. Children need to develop the interest for it. So instead of saying, I want my child to meditate, or I will teach my child to meditate, first, do some short meditation in front of your child. Say that you are going to relax and meditate for a few minutes, and explain that meditation calms you down and helps you to feel peaceful. Usually, when young children see a parent practicing meditation, they like to sit next to their mom and dad and try to copy what the parent is doing. Now, Not all children are ready to practice meditation successfully at first, because they have a hard time controlling their bodies and minds. But with consistency, this can be learned. Do not give up. What is important is that you are beginning to educate your child on how to be quiet and still, as they also learn some breathing techniques, which are great tools that he can use to calm down. An easy way to start is by using music. Play some relaxation music with nature sounds or calming classical music for about 3 to 4 minutes. Invite your child to sit up in a comfortable position, but do not lie down. You don't want your child to fall asleep. Just ask him to close his eyes and listen to the melody, reminding him to breathe. This is the first step to help children to be still, as the melody helps them to focus. Do this for a week or so. After your child gets used to doing it, then add some breathing techniques. Instead of music, you may say a mantra, which is a word, a phrase, or even a sound that can help him to focus, and that increase the time of the meditation. It should be 10 to 20 minutes the most, depending on the child's age. There are several instructional books and online information on meditation and how to teach your child to meditate. Or you can try to find a meditation or a yoga center in your area that you and your child may attend. As you practice meditation with your child, slowly you will find the best meditation style and technique that will fit the both of you. Third question. Besides calming our minds, what are the spiritual aspects of meditation? Our thoughts have waves and vibrations. Once we calm our minds down and are in a peaceful state, this energy will expand and be projected to the environment we are, impregnating our surroundings with positive and peaceful energy. So, as we meditate, we're not only bringing peace to our minds, but also to our homes or the places we are practicing it. As we engage in a positive vibration level, we are also attracting good spirits that can send us inspiration and some healing energy. Meditation is also a great opportunity to mentally connect with our guardian angel. That's why we suggest that before we start to meditate, to do a short prayer so we can receive the inspiration from our mentors. One thing you may teach your child, after he has developed the skills of being still and having a peaceful mind, is to ask his guardian angel a question about something he needs help or an advice. In fact, at the end of question 495 of the Spirit's book, St. Louis and St. Augustine say, "Don't be afraid of tiring us with your questions. On the contrary, always stay in contact with us. You'll be stronger and happier for it. It is this ability to communicate with your guardian angel that makes you extrasensorial beings, and that one day will drive disbelief in us from your world." So, at an early age, you are teaching your child how to connect, communicate, and listen to his spiritual guide. Kardec Radio listeners, let's remember the story in the New Testament when Jesus was in the boat with the disciples and he fell asleep. While sleeping, a great windstorm came up on the lake. The disciples were afraid, but Jesus was calmly sleeping. Then one of the disciples woke Jesus up, telling him that they were going to perish. Jesus stood up and rebuked the wind and the raging water, saying to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the storm ceased, and there was a great calm. how many storms we face in our lives, how much conflict we may have in our minds, like winter storms, thoughts that are like thunder cutting through the day and night and affecting our state of mind. Just like Jesus did, we need to dedicate time to bring peace to our mind, body, and spirit. And we should educate our children about it. Meditation helps with that. Meditation is a lifestyle. So let's practice peace. Be still. Thanks for listening to Yes. And if you have any questions that would like us to answer, please email to Kardec at kardecradio.com.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Would you like to liberate yourself from your life struggles or to find inner balance? The Inner Journey CD has 3 beautiful visualizations that will help you bring harmony to your life. As Joanna DeAngeli tells us to, live in a way that you leave enlightening footprints in your pathway as if they were stars pointing out the pathway to happiness. To find this CD, go to the bookstore on the Spiritist Society of Baltimore webpage, www.ssbaltimore.org. That is www.ssbaltimore.org, and start your inner journey today.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
A new great book and tool for kids and educators. The children's book, Our Father by the Spirit May, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is available for purchase at www.edisayofamerica.com. Buy your copy today.
And now we return to our program.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome back to the Spiritist Moment. Today we are giving continuation to our study and reflections based on the third part of the Spirit's book, The Moral Laws. Well, dear friends, dear listeners, we learn in question 621 that the laws of God are written in our conscience. But, dear friends, do we stop to reflect that this means that all creatures in all lands, from a man in Pakistan who's Muslim to a man who's Jewish living in Israel, the laws of God are also written in his conscience. In the conscience of everyone, the laws are written. So, dear friends, this is a huge bridge that Spiritism makes with all world religions across the globe. It's very beautiful, and we learn with the Spirit's book, as they state, that we know that everyone knows the laws of God, but not everyone understands it. And we know that the laws of God don't just encompass the moral laws, they also encompass the laws of science, as the Spirits say in questions 619, the divine laws are the laws that regulate the movement and relations of base matter. Question 617a, that there are ones that also concern humans and their relations with God. So all of these laws are written within us, but not all of us understand it. Well, many of us know that if we jump off a second floor, story, window, or wherever, we know that the law of gravity will very soon assert itself and let us know. So it is not by chance that we come to understand these laws, but by further reflection and further study. And the most beautiful thing the Spirits share with us, that we simply have to have a desire and go and read and study to better understand these laws. And we have these laws and these truths have existed from the past civilizations, and we learn from the Spirit's book, question 626, from the remotest of times, all who have meditated on wisdom have been able to understand and teach these laws. Though these teachings were incomplete, they prepared the ground to receive the seed. And it's so beautiful, dear friends, because we see that there is value in the religions of the past and the philosophical ideas that existed
way back in the time of Jesus, and even before Jesus. We know that Socrates was a forerunner of Spiritism and like-minded, great philosophical thinkers. And we go to question 628 when the Spirits share with us that enlightened individuals should not neglect any ancient philosophical system, tradition, or religion, because they all contain the seeds of great truth. So we see how beautifully the Spirits share with us this bridging of other world religions, traditions, and understanding, knowing that the seeds are spread out through the world. And we learn in the Gospel according to Spiritism in the introduction, when Kardec explains how he compiled all of the teachings together from across the world at that time, bringing together all of the information that were similar throughout the world. These truths, because it was understood that these truths are given to all peoples across the globe. And it's so interesting because we give so much respect and value to our dear Governor Jesus. In question 627, when the Spirits share with us that Jesus' teachings were frequently allegorical and he spoke according to the time, but today the truth must be made intelligible for all. It is necessary to explain these laws and elaborate on them. There are few who understand them and still fewer who actually practice them. And that is quote unquote from question 627 of the Spirit's book. So dear friends, one, we learn that Jesus' teachings, yes, he did bring them, and he was the epitome and the embodiment of God's divine laws because he fulfilled all of them and is a great guide and mentor for us and our great Governor. But we learn with the Spirits that nowadays the truth has to be made understandable for everyone. And it's necessary that we explain these laws and elaborate them. And it doesn't just mean the moral laws, also all the other laws God has created. And this is where Spiritism encourages us for our moral edification and our intellectual edification as well. So, dear friends, we encourage you to go read and study in all forms the Spirit's book and the codification and much, much more. And as always, we wish you many blessings.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listener. Welcome to the segment Spiritism in Your Life. All of us, at any point of our lives, are going to face difficulties, feel sad or depressed. And we always wonder, is there anything I can do that I can alleviate my suffering? Or something that will help me go through these difficulties? And we've been talking about this for the last few weekends. And today, we're going to bring you a very nice recipe for you not only to alleviate your difficulties and your suffering, but also for you to become a better person. And it's a very, very simple recipe. Most of us, when we're going through turbulences and problems, we will only think about ourselves. And that's where the problem gets worse. Because if we only consider ourselves, or if we consider that we're the ones that are suffering the most in the entire planet, then we're making everything more complicated, because now not only we're going through the difficulty, but we're also being selfish. And you're probably asking by this time, what should we do then? And the answer is simple. Be altruistic. Think about others. Practice charity. That's the answer. And there are a number of very good references, not only in Spiritism, but also in our scientific research, that supports that idea. Here's one example. A large online survey with over 4,000 American adults have shown that people who volunteer have less trouble sleeping, less anxiety, less hopelessness, and better friendships and social networks, better sense of control over chronic conditions, and are overall happier. Other important papers have also conclusively shown that being altruistic and helping others can actually decrease your stress levels, increase your longevity, and boost your immune system. Here's another example. Schwartz et al. In 2003 investigated whether altruistic social behaviors, such as helping others, were associated with better physical and mental health. So questionnaires were mailed to evaluate giving versus receiving help, prayer activities, positive and negative religious coping, self-reported physical and mental health. After adjusting for age, gender, stressful life events, income, and many other variables, he conclusively showed that giving help was more significantly associated with better mental health than it was receiving help. After listening to this, we should think about the times when we're feeling down, where everything seems to be collapsing upon us, and all we ask is for help. We ask for help all the time, and we want to receive help. But how many times we thought about giving help, especially for people who are going through much more difficult situations than our own? Not only helping ourselves, but helping others, because that's the pathway for you to be a happier, healthier person. And one of the most amazing publications on this topic was published in Science in 1980 by a team of Nerim, Levesque, and Cornhill. They've started to set up a study to analyze the effects of a diet high in fat and cholesterol in rabbits. And they were expecting a very straightforward result, which is that if you eat more fat and cholesterol, you're going to have more atherosclerosis and other diseases associated with it. But the results were really surprising. One subgroup of rabbits had 60% less atherosclerosis than the group as a whole, even though they ate the same diet, which did not make any sense based on the setup of the study. The only notable difference in treatment was that the healthier subgroup was fed and cared by a lab assistant who took them out of their cages, patted them, and talked to them before feeding. The study was repeated twice with the same results. So that also makes us think, when we all concerned about our health and everything around us, but we forget that giving love or sharing love is way more important than anything else. If you start thinking about this, I can guarantee you that life is going to change, because this is what Jesus wants from us. And we can see this over and over in the Gospels, as Paul wrote to Corinthians, "Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and have not charity, I am become as a sounding brass, or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all the mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have faith, so that I could remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing." Dear friends, thank you once again for being here with us today. I hope this message can go straight into your heart, and we all together start thinking about charity, not only as something that someone told us to do, but also as a medication for our soul and for our evolution. Thank you, and God bless us.
Good morning, dear Kardec Radio listeners. Welcome to one more meeting with God at Home. I am Naor Fonseca.
And I am Gabi Ferreira. In today's program, we will study about Lesson 13, The Sincere Revolutionary, from the book Jesus in the Home by Spirit Neo Lucio and psychographed by Chico Xavier.
How often do we feel rebellious when we hear about an injustice, irregularities in government, or a family dispute? Who do you think is more courageous? One who defies an empire, or one who fulfills his or her obligations? Today's story is about these two sentiments.
Some may be familiar with the fact that Judas was fascinated with the idea that the kingdom of heaven should be implanted quickly and forcefully by a decree of government. One night, he had been speaking enthusiastically about a possible uprising in Jerusalem, when the Lord very calmly added these comments.
A king, in ancient times, was regarded by his people as being so cruel that the head prophet of the kingdom was called upon to lead a widespread rebellion to try to dethrone him. At first, the prophet did not believe the accusations, but the people convinced him that the king had a heart of stone and persecuted his subjects all over the kingdom. Then the trusting prophet became enraged as well, and accepted the idea of a revolution as the only remedy. However, since he had an unwavering trust in God, on the evening of the event, he went up on the top of a mount and prayed so fervently for divine assistance that an angel from heaven was sent to have a heart-to-heart with him. The angel then said,
"In the name of the Supreme Lord, the plan will be approved under one condition. You must live with the king for 100 days in his palace as a humble and loyal servant. At the end of this time, if your mind is set on the same intent, you can overthrow the throne with our support."
Humble and sincere, he went to the royal abode and took the job as an unknown servant. As soon as he began serving the king, he noticed that the king never had time for any pleasures of life. In the morning, he would be surrounded by impertinent advisers and ministers. He was tormented of complaints by the hour. He was deprived of his children's affection, and he lived far away from his wife. In addition, he always suffered ill health due to banquets and ceremonies, and he was forced to listen to all kinds of lies. He never slept, nor did he eat at the right time each day. By the end of the 100 days, the prophet had undergone a dramatic transformation and returned to the mount to honor his promise. When the angel appeared, he implored him to have mercy on the king, for whom he now felt a sincere sense of compassion. The prophet gathered the people and notified that the king was perhaps the most tortured man in the entire kingdom, and that instead of a revolution, they should show more understanding and work harder at their jobs, so the king could without trouble fulfill the mission that had been bestowed upon him. The rebellion gave way to understanding and hard work.
What a beautiful lesson of humbleness and understanding. The leader of the revolution worked for his enemy as a simple servant and was able to put himself on the king's shoes, completely changing the perspective. He did not give up his ideals, but he kept an open mind to comprehend the other side. This lesson leads us to think about our relationships and how many times we are quick to judge the other people instead of pausing and reflecting on what makes them act in disagreement to what we think. It takes a great amount of courage to show compassion. As Joanna de Angelis says, true courage is demonstrated by the way you confront the battles of life, day to day. Courage is calm and constant, lucid and creative, while rebelliousness is desperate, aggressive, and irritated.
Now, dear listener, we invite you to a new moment. It is a moment in which we rejoice in the teachings that we have been given today. Kardec Radio is here really to nourish our souls, to prepare us for a new era in which there is healthier entertainment as proposed in the latest issue of the Spiritist magazine, and in the teachings that Brian Sandroff and all the good spirit doctors who were bringing to us, that we need to take care of our body. Taking care of our physical body, as in the Gospel according to Spiritism, we need to learn how to deal with illnesses as learning lesson. So how about learning to ask ourselves and the guardian angels, what is it that this experience, this illness is here for me? So in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 28, there's a collection of Spiritist prayers, and there is one in special that says how to pray, ask for counsel, for advice. Kardec says, whenever we are unsure about doing or not doing something, we should, before anything else, ask ourselves the following questions. Can the thing that I am hesitant to do cause harm to someone else? 2, might it be useful to someone? 3, if someone else were to do it to me, will it be happy about it? Then, in meditation and in prayer, we can ask, what is this illness here for? And we pray at this very moment. In the name of God Almighty, we ask the good spirits who watch over us to inspire us to make the best decision in the uncertainty in which we find ourselves when in illness. Direct our thoughts to the good and divert the influence of those who would tempt us off the right path. Dear listener, in prayer we can always get to know things we don't know. When learning from illnesses, in prayer we can actually get to know more about what to do at those harsh times. Next week when we come here, our dear program at Kardec Radio is in June 2nd, putting together a whole interview about bullying, understanding, and treating it with Dr. Vicky Penachon, who has been considered one of the leading experts in parenting. You can get to know more of her at KardecRadio.com, and many beautiful programs in June. We tell you it's all about the healing of the soul. And you know, when you want to listen to these programs and much more, you can also listen it at Bezier Online Web Radio at Spiritist.com. Next week when we have our program here with Dr. Penachon, we're dedicating it to the educational series of the campaign I Honor My Parents. Dear listener, we hope you enjoy this weekend and the very day you're listening to this, remembering you are a child of God and God loves you. Never forget that. May we feel God's blessings, and we will see you in a week.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.